This is Feminist Wellness, and I'm your host, nurse practitioner, functional medicine expert, and life coach, Victoria Albina. I'll show you how to get unstuck, drop the anxiety, perfectionism, and codependency so you can live from your beautiful heart. Welcome, my love. Let's get started. Hello, my love. I hope this finds you doing so well. I am here today with someone completely and amazingly amazing. The wonderful Mara Glatzel. She's a phenomenal author, an incredible coach, a wonderful human, and I'm so excited to share this conversation with her, with yous. Mara, hi.
Hi, thanks for having me. I love being here.
Yay, I'm so glad you're here. I told the folks a little bit about you, but there's so much more to what you do. Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I am Mara, and I am a podcast host, a coach, a writer, and the author of the book Needy: How to Advocate for Your Needs and Claim Your Sovereignty. And I work with people to grow from self-abandonment to self-partnership. And I do that through supporting them and reclaiming their needs and even knowing what's on the table to need to begin with, and really building self-trust and unshakable confidence in their relationship with themselves. And I'm really happy to be here.
Wow. I'm so happy you're here. And so much of what you just said rattled my brain of like how intensely we can forget what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what just struck me, like helping folks to remember what's even on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It wasn't until deep into my book writing journey that I realized that part of the reason I wanted to write this book right now is to give us some vocabulary for what we are even allowed to need.
Right.
You know, so many of my clients are stymied by that question. Well, what do you need?
Right.
And because they don't have the modeling or the skills or people in their lives who are advocating for their needs with grace and ease and confidence, they don't know how to answer that question, not because they don't have needs, but because they don't know what they're allowed to need, like what is literally on the table to need. And so, you know, that's why I love to have conversations like this, because I think we all need role models.
Yeah.
Of people who are willing to just have frank conversations about, this is what I need. Well, what do you need? And, you know, this is what it looks like. A lot of people come to me and say, oh, well, you do this work. That must mean that you get all of your needs met, which I will just get out of the way at the top of this call is patently untrue. None of us are getting all of our needs met. And that's okay. You know, we're so accustomed to thinking that we identify something and we have to make it happen, or we have to move towards it with a quickness. But in the realm of self-partnership, I'm always really voting for being honest with yourself and taking your time with what you need. You know, maybe you don't have the skills yet to ask for what you need, and that's okay. Maybe there's something that you need that feels really audacious or big, or you know it's going to change your life and you're not sure if it's for the better. And you're allowed to be in partnership with your needs in whatever way feels right and good and safe and possible.
How would you define that? What is being in partnership with your needs? I love that phrasing, by the way. Oof.
Yeah. So for me, that means infrequent conversation with myself about my needs. Mm-hmm. And it used to be that I wouldn't dare to admit something to myself, or I would kind of willfully ignore something until I was ready to do something about it. There was a lot of self-censorship involved with that, because I was like, on some level, I know can't deal with that reality, so I'm just going to put the cap on that. But we don't really know what we're dealing with until we're willing to be in conversation with ourselves about it. And so I find that divorcing the thought from the impetus to action there's so much grace in there, where you can have conversations and think, you know, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm having these thoughts. I'm considering this move. I am wondering about what this might be like, and I'm willing to just talk to myself about that until I feel ready to do something.
Right.
And sometimes we get more information. Sometimes that's time to kind of ready our courage or gather support systems, whatever that might look like. But for me, this is really a daily conversation with myself about the doorway in for a lot of people, for myself included, I think is like, what's not working?
Yeah.
Where am I angry? Where am I resentful? That's, this neon sign towards, I need something that I'm not getting.
Right.
And am I willing to talk to myself about that first? Because it also used to be that I would try to work that out in conversation, like on the spot,
Right.
which was not a successful strategy for me. I think it's a lot to ask. I have a pretty quick processing speed, but even still, it's a lot to ask of yourself to be thinking and talking simultaneously about things that are vulnerable and intimate and hard to name.
Potentially activate your nervous system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that space you're talking about, that pause is such an integral part of building self-intimacy and self-trust. Because for me, that's really where my body can come in, where somatics can come in, where attention and attunement to the nervous system can come in, and where my inner children can have some space to talk. And my socialized, conditioned brain can take a little breather, right? Can step aside for just a second to let my bodily wisdom come through. And that for me, both knowing what my wants and needs are, feeling confident in them. Okay, so it's not a both. I often do that. I'm like both, but then I think of 12 things.
Yes.
So I'll untrain my mouth from saying both, or I won't. We'll see what happens. But yeah, feeling confident, knowing what my wants and needs are, feeling that they're okay. That has been a whole process, right? And then coming to believe that it's okay to voice them and then voicing them. It's this whole process that I had to get my body on board with so that my brain could chill enough that I could begin to maybe try to maybe say the things maybe.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I can see in that the way that diet culture disconnects us from our bodies, and that we may be so accustomed to not trusting ourselves, not trusting our bodies. And so, the wants and needs are really of the body by and large. I mean, we have mental needs, certainly, but it's slow technology. And if we are accustomed to being these kind of walking intellectual heads, which I certainly was socialized that way,
100%.
Was like, I don't need to slow down. I don't need to take time. I don't need to be with myself. I'm ready. I'm prepared. I'm smart. Look at me. I can kind of make it work on the fly. And it's only been the last couple of years that I have slowed down in motherhood kind of by necessity to realize how unfair of an ask that was of myself. How much expectation we have to, first of all, how painful it is to be disconnected from your body and mistrusting of your body in such a core way.
Yeah.
But this other piece of okay, well, if I don't have that, the body, I'll put it in air quotes, the body, then I have this, the mind, and the mind better be, kind of on its feet all the time, doing the thing, being very charming, being very compensating for this lack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of grief in there. And I think that grief takes time and care. And that's why there is a slowness and such a value in getting our body on board.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know I lived in such a functional freeze, right? Always revved up in sympathetic activation, but also collapsed to my own emotions. I describe it like living in a block of ice from the neck down. I felt mad, sad, and glad, but not the depths of those things. Despair and rage. I could feel those too. But all the juicy middle, just sort of frozen for a really long time from self-preservation. And that made me really numb to my needs, right? Because I was so numb to the complexity and the delicateness of my own emotions and feelings and felt sensation. And so when the opportunity arose to be in the company of people who cared about my needs, I didn't know what to need. I remember that leaving, I was in an emotionally abusive marriage that was a no good situation. And my needs were very actively shot down to the point where I I definitely from self-preservation was all right, I have no needs. Great. I have no wants. I have no needs. Because if I kept my mouth shut, I was temporarily safer. So 10 points to pass me for doing the best she could with the skills she had in that shitty situation. And once I was out of it, I remember just like not asking for help, like doing all the things and running myself ragged. And the people I was calling in being like, yo, I can take the garbage out. And I was like, someone else can do anything? It was like, I remember sort of being shocked, like having to pause and be like, holy shit, someone else can do, like other people are capable. Which allows the space for my needs to have value.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild how we step out of it and back in.
It is wild. And I find that we go in one of two ways. One is like, shut this operation down. No needs here.
Nope.
Not a problem. I've got it.
I'm fine.
And the other direction is needy, right? Yeah. That classic kind of hungry ghost. No matter what you give me, I still need more.
Right.
Pursue.
Right.
Which is more my brand of
I definitely did that at first. I like definitely got into that relationship from that like codep fixer, emotional outsourcing. Like you're a hot mess. Let me fix you. And then when that got slapped down enough, I was like, okay, I am a hungry ghost who will keep her hunger silent.
Yeah. I think for me, the pain comes in around wanting so desperately to matter. And, having our needs acknowledged and met is so closely aligned with that. I mean, it is such a young desire. Do you see me?
Yeah.
Do you care about me? Do I matter to you?
Right. And
when you carry that, it can feel so tender. That we do either put up all of these walls or become, hungrier and hungrier and or both.
Yeah.
And I think there's, for me in my journey to really holding space for my needs has come through the door of, am I willing to matter to myself? And realizing that in that kind of like hungrier phase, that there were a lot of things that I was trying to outsource that I was unable or unwilling to do for myself, that I was unable or unwilling to tend to myself. It's like, I want you to make me feel loved. And I'm not doing any of my own work to, to build that in my relationship with myself.
Why do you think we do that?
Well, I think in some ways we're socialized to. Yeah. I mean, I think there's personal reasons for it too, but I think, in this situation, I had so bought this lie that, when you become worthy, somebody kind of scoops you up and marries you and loves you. And what love means is I know exactly what you need and I'm going to give it to you. That's love, right? You don't have to say anything. There's nothing but mind reading going on here.
Right.
But that if somebody isn't doing that, that must mean they think I'm not worthy, right? All of these things that are happening in this kind of subtext. And for me, that came through the door of a lot of romantic comedies, like a lot of romantic comedies.
Maguire. Yeah.
Which seems silly, but have such an impact on you. That story of, somebody's gonna kind of love me into existence.
Yeah.
And not wanting to have to be the one to do that for myself.
Right. Well, especially when we're taught we can't, right? We're not enough to do that for ourselves. That we need our parents in shining armor to come rescue us. Such damsels that we are. You and I are true damsels.
True damsels, yeah. Well, and that feeling too, like it's embarrassing. If I have to do it for myself, it means nobody else is willing to do it for me.
I'm not worthy of someone doing it for me.
So terrible.
Yeah.
Such a spinster.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. And so I
worse
think
than that. Yeah.
I don't like cats. So that would be a dire life for me. Indeed.
That would indeed. I'm allergic to like every third cat. It's weird. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's not. I don't get it. The science evades me, but different dander. Yeah. We wouldn't do well as spinsters. There's now a show about dander and spinsterhood.
Well, and I think, these concepts are so ridiculous in so many ways. Like when you really look at it and you think, how could I, as an intelligent, thoughtful human still believes some of these lies, these myths on some base level, but they work their way into your worldview. They work their way into your system. And yeah, we carry them.
That's when I think of inner children's and parts, right? And like, so I had this part inside me that we've come to call the settling part that believed from my childhood that I was not worthy of love because I wasn't attuned to the way I wanted and needed in childhood and didn't feel seen, right? Didn't feel worthy. And so this part within me that was a very powerful part that ran the show for a very long time told me to settle, right? That if someone looked in my direction, was like, you're okay. And I was like, okay, great. Then I'm you, right? And this part made me settle and settle and settle and kept me in relationships that I consciously didn't want to be with. I didn't want to be with this whomever, but this part insisted that I stay. And so this part of my subconscious was really running the show. And it felt like there were two sort of fighting parts within me because there were, right? And so it was through a lot of coaching and therapy and other largely somatic modalities that I was able to work with that part and release, unburden that part and get it out of my body. And the difference in my life is outstanding. In my friendships, in my romantic relationship, like everything in my life is the thing that I wanted and needed, not the thing I'm settling for. And it's such a huge difference. And it takes finding those sneaky, hidden subconscious recordings, those little tracks, those cassette tapes, right?
Yeah. And what I think is so important about hearing you say that, for all of us who are listening to this podcast, hearing you say that, is that standing on the precipice of doing things differently, it can feel like I have everything to lose and nothing to gain. Because I really can't imagine it.
Yeah.
If I haven't experienced it. And so this is why I think these kinds of conversations are so important and powerful, because we need to hear other people saying like, yeah, you know, I mean, you didn't say it was scary. I'm putting that in your
in my little mouth.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it was scary. It was scary for quite a while until something clicked. I mean, to be that gal quoting Anais Nin, right? We all have to.
We must. Right? It's our due diligence.
It is our due diligence. It is as spinsters, future spinsters of America, right? And the day came when the risk it took to remain tight in a bud was more than the risk it took to blossom. We're going to call it a paraphrase because I think I got a preposition or two off in there, but close enough.
Yeah.
Right? There was just a day where staying in the constant pain of self-abandonment, of settling, of saying, I don't have needs. I don't have needs. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. That was way too painful. I couldn't stomach that any longer. And I didn't know what was coming and it was scary. Right. And I couldn't stay in what I was in anymore. That was unbearable.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. And I'm really grateful to all the friends, all the people who supported me, and to my privilege to get to do this work and keep doing this work and have all this support.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you know, hearing you say that too. It's that piece of, it's like, in my experience, it's like, you only have to be the tiniest ounce more on the side of, I have to do this. I have to be who I am. I have to need what I need. I have to be willing to back myself. We live in this, you know, it's either a hell no or it's a hell yes kind of culture. And there's so much nuance and so much space. And, you know, that very tender spot of like, it is just like a half of a pinky nail on one side of the scale. That's what it is. And here we are. And moving forward from that place. Yeah. It's not a hell yes. It's like a
no. It's
if it was any other way, please.
Right. Right. Yeah. God, that hell yes, hell no thing. It's just like another way to be in a limiting binary, right? It's just a patriarchal framework, right? In like dolled up #wellness clothing, I guess. Right? Because the body works in subtlety. And the subtle body is the one I want to be attuned to, right? The energy body. Yeah. That's where I get my best information.
Yeah. So I could say a hell yes for tangible items, but for I think like relational things or making moves in my life, I can usually see it from about 75,000 perspectives. And Pisces. And then I'm like, well, I mean, you know.
I am such a Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leo, Sag, Taurus. Like, let's also just put that big three out there with so much Virgo in my natal chart. My progress chart is like lousy with Virgo right now. So my habits, I don't know. I mean, I want to, I don't know. I could, I'm let's go. It's like a switch flips, like making the podcast. Like my friend Cara was like, no, you need to make a podcast. You need to make a podcast. I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll do it. I'll figure it out and just let it sort of marinate. And then one day I bought the mic, called the guy, made the art, like did it.
Yeah. And look, here we are. And what a beloved podcast you have.
Here we are. Yours is pretty damn good too. I gotta say, it's really good. It's really good. Hey, so how do we get back to ourselves and our needs when we get lost?
This is one of my favorite questions because boy, do we ever get lost, right? Let's just normalize that. Okay. Because I find so many people are in pain because they've gotten lost. And we get lost. I mean, we get distracted, we get busy, we get all kinds of things. And I find that for most of us, doing this work of self-partnership requires energy.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking at meeting the needs of the physical body first to give us some of the energy that we require. And so for me, that looks like prioritizing a consistent bedtime and prioritizing feeding myself meals throughout the day, including breakfast. I have become a real breakfast fan. I was formerly drink coffee till 1 p.m. until you can't. And it is little wonder.
Your adrenals said.
Yeah, my body was like, well, this doesn't work. So we don't drink water. We only drink coffee. We don't eat breakfast. No. So now I eat breakfast. But I think those two things are really important. You know, for some people, it's getting outside in nature, moving your body. For some people, it's like physical touch, orgasming, you know, whatever helps you kind of wake up again in your body, which can be an uncomfortable process because depending on how long you've been offline, it can be alarming to wake up in your body, you know, totally recognize your body. You may feel, you know, like there's a big hole you have to dig yourself out of or something.
Yeah. And particularly for folks where their body's been the site of trauma, I just want to make sure to say that.
Yeah.
Right. That going into the body and being present in the body is a whole, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I find that, you know, asking yourself what you need is excellent.
Yeah.
And also having something to start with if you're not able to answer that question. So say I ask myself what I need and it's just like static, panic, overwhelm, things are not going well. You know, can I drink? I'm drinking out of this like 32-ounce mason jar.
Yeah.
Can I drink one of these before breakfast, one of these between breakfast and lunch, and one of these between lunch and dinner? That is a thing that I know to do that helps me immediately.
Oh, I love that.
So if I can't answer the question of what do I need, or I can't figure out how to get more rest, I mean, with rest, it's like, I know it's a 10 p.m. bedtime.
Sure.
So, you know, with the food, I know it's scrambled eggs for breakfast. So having some things that you can just start doing when you notice that you've been lost for a period of time, especially if that, well, what do I need question feels really fuzzy, can be useful because then you can just start with those things and you're stabilizing your blood sugar, you're getting more hydration, you're getting more rest, you're adding to your physical capacity to be with yourself in a powerful way.
Yeah. I talk about this as remembering that you're a taller toddler.
Yes.
Because we are all just somewhere between 2.5 and 3. And we're teething and we forget to like do the basics. And then we wonder why we're grumples. We're all like grumples in the world. But remembering you're a taller toddler is one of the first and most important steps to somatic awareness. Right? We all want to regulate our nervous system and sort of do people ask me all the time, like, for somatic movement practices and like, how do I do these complex things to regulate my nervous system? And we forget that it starts with wake up, drink a big glass of water, brush your teeth, right? Like do get sunshine on your face and create routine that is supportive and loving and gentle, which, and I say that really specifically because I think we can get sold this bill of goods if we're not doing like the like super white cis dude CEO, like get up at 4 a.m., Hulk it out, ice bath kind of routine. We're somehow failing ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on ice baths. So if you want to, we could, but maybe later. Gentleness, like compassionate, kind gentleness. Like what is a more basic human need than that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and how interesting, speaking of ice baths, how interesting it is that we want to bypass what is gentle and what is kind and what is consistent in favor of what is
shiny.
Shiny and proven. And, you know, it's like the things I will do to avoid just being with myself every single day and having that be the answer are many. So I say this with compassion.
Oh, yeah.
Because that idea of a shortcut is so ever present.
Right.
And what I know to be true about myself is I don't want to be bypassed by a shortcut. You know, if I were thinking about it from a perspective of my partner, it's like, I don't want them to take the easy route. I want to be worth the hard thing. I want to be worth the daily recognition. I want to be worth like you thinking of me and making intentional choices that take me into consideration. And back to, is that something I'm ready, able, and willing to do for myself?
Yeah.
Like that was a hard pill for me to swallow, but that's what I want. That's what I need.
I just need us to stop and come back to this point like 400 more times. I wouldn't want anyone else to bypass me and to leapfrog over my needs, my partner, my parent, my sibling, like the people I love, right? What we most want. This is where we started, right? As little kids, we're craving, we need, we want in order to feel safe in our nervous systems. It is vital that we know that we are significant and we belong in our village, right? That our collective believes that we matter. That's how we create safe, securely attached nervous systems, right? A safe, securely attached sense of self. And yet, in adulthood, capitalism has taught us, white settler colonialism has taught us, the patriarchy has taught us to bypass this core, most important thing, which is to be with ourselves.
Yeah. It's funny, I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I have like a daily reminder of this. It's like literally all they want is for me to stop everything that I'm doing. Like get down to their level and just give them my own kind of unhurried attention. And it is amazing how challenging that is to offer and how many things you think you're supposed to do instead and how important all of those things are. And so I can see how that plays out in our relationship with ourselves too. But yeah, the power of just being like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than right here with you. Yeah. And you can give yourself that, you know, I mean, I think that part of this work is that we really put romantic love on a pedestal, you know, followed by friendship love. And then down there somewhere in the very dirt is my partnership with myself. Like, oh God, no, I do not want that to be the answer. I do not want that to be the answer. I hear that from so many people. I want it to be anybody else but me. Please let it be my family of origin. Please let it be my friends. Please let it be this romance that will save me from everything. But dear God, no, not just me and myself.
Super annoying.
Which is such a shame. It is such a shame.
Such a shame.
You know, I was recently at my 20th high school reunion and somebody said to me, do you have hobbies? And I was like, yeah, you know, I do have hobbies. I have like these things. I'm like writing this like YA fiction book and I've like, you know, this like other stuff and I like to knit and I like to do this and I have like all these different things. I'm thinking about doing like community theater or maybe burlesque. I started hula hooping again. And I was like, do you have hobbies? She was like, no. I asked because I kind of thought it was a myth that grownups have hobbies. Like, I'm so surprised that you were just able to prattle off all of these things. I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, I'm interested in this. I'm interested in that. I like bought this new hula hoop. It's really fun.
Love it.
But, you know, I did not used to have hobbies. I did not used to have a working understanding of what lit me up. And it's so much more fun to be in relationship with myself so that I can notice. I was in Denver recording the audiobook for Needy. I was in this Uber. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, community theater.
I love it.
And I used to act a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too.
And, if I wasn't attuned to myself, I would be like, that's stupid. You're dumb. You have little kids. Right. You don't have any time. That's embarrassing. Right. You've been out of the show for so long. You're never going to give it, whatever. But, being in relationship with myself means like, oh, wow, I am endlessly fascinated to become reacquainted with these parts of myself, acquainted with new parts of myself for the first time, just live for that desire.
Right.
And that brings so much joy and juiciness and satisfaction to life that's just beyond what do you do for money? And what do you like? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it reminds us that there's so many parts to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that we can revel in the complexity. And as always, hold space for the fact that too can feel really scary when you're really shut down to yourself.
Big time.
And I love that you're modeling and highlighting the joy and the gifts that can come from remembering what you want and need in life. Right. And then walking through that pathway we were talking about of remembering. Mm-hmm. And I say remembering because people often come to me, they're like, I've never known what I want and needed. I'm like, no, my darling, you were a newborn. Mm-hmm. And if anyone listening has ever been a newborn, you know that you screamed when you had a need and you knew what that need was. Wet, clean diaper, food, farts stuck in belly, someone get them out. Right. Mm-hmm. Like we all have this core knowing of what's for us. Mm-hmm. Just forget it over the course of being a human, particularly when we're raised in emotional outsourcing and codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing households. And so we just get to remember and slowly say yes. And for me, that's the key, right? I talk about how baby steps are way too friggin' big. No one should be out there taking a baby step. Are you bananas? Don't you, not on my watch. There will be no baby steps around here, right? Because you're going to fall right on your sweet little nose. The physics is off. It's too big. We take kitten paw, little teeny, even though we've just talked about how we don't love cats, but I love the concept of a kitten's paw. It's just a little kitten paw size step towards saying yes.
Yeah.
So the thing I tell folks to ask themselves about is their morning beverage. Mm-hmm. Because how many people drink coffee? Because it's like what your parents drank and their parents drank. And so you just drink coffee. Do you even like coffee? Do you even like it light and sweet? Do you even like it black? Like, what do you want? Do you want chai? Mm-hmm. Do you want mate? Like, what do you want?
Yeah. So two things. The first is thinking about that baby. I often talk about babies too in my work.
Yeah.
And, really from that place of having compassion for ourselves, because for so many of us, we are babies having needs and our caregivers are on the job for the first time.
Yeah.
A lot of shit can go down.
Sure.
Even this early, right? So even that early, we begin to encode, I have a need. This person looks mad. This person looks, I don't know, and we start to have these stories about what it means to have needs and ask for our needs to be met. So when we start to do this work, it is really important that we are endlessly compassionate to ourselves. For some of us, it's like it is pre-verbal how deep it goes.
Yeah.
And so if you're feeling like this is really hard, this is impossible, I feel really genuinely scared to do this, there is space for you here. And of course you do.
Yeah.
And the second piece is for the morning beverage. I don't know if you are familiar with Runaway Bride. Here's my rom-com socialization at work. But in Runaway Bride, she is always eating her eggs the way that whomever she is dating at the time is eating their eggs. And so it's this whole thing. And, it becomes just this moment where you see that she doesn't know herself. She's just positioning herself in relation to whomever she is in a relationship with. And then it's Runaway Bride. So she runs when she gets to the altar over and over and over again.
Okay.
So then there comes this moment where she's finding herself and she's sitting at this table full of eggs. And I talk about this all the time at my work. I'm like, this table full of eggs, every single kind of egg that you can think of. And she's trying them all. And she's deciding for herself what kind of eggs she likes. And I love that. And I love the idea of the morning beverage. It's like taking these things off of autopilot and asking, I am a coffee diehard and I'm really specific about the kind of coffee that I will drink. I'm actually really specific about everything. It's like I almost never drink alcohol except for at one place where they have really great craft cocktails that they kind of make with like tweezers and like,
oh wow,
it's like
keeping it
cocktail
pretentious.
Yeah, that there is part of my aesthetic that just loves things that are like things that are made with like beakers and I love that.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. What's your moon and your rising?
Libra, both. So I was just at this restaurant and I said, this drink, what kind of glass does it come in? And he was like, of course. The bartender was like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, well, if it has a stem, I'm out. So.
Oh, I only want things up. Okay, we have to have this conversation.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm also partial to like, they have these like one kind of big square ice cube. I want it in a rocks glass with a big square ice cube. So tell me what is on this list that I can have. And he was like, no one in my life has ever come to me and had like a glass specification.
Well, welcome,
but
friend.
Here's the thing. You get to have specifications.
Yep.
And the experience of receiving that from yourself is really delicious. Like not just because the drink is delicious, but like the experience of having exactly what you want. The coffee you want, the chai you want, as you want it.
And believing you're worthy of it. And I think that's where people get stuck, right? That's where people get stuck is in that story that I'm not worth it. Like I'm not worthy of getting what I want, right? That's for other people. Right. And so that's where this teeny tiny kitten paw step work came in for me, right? To start to show myself, right? To provide evidence for my mind and body, like that the world wasn't going to end. And I don't say that like flippantly because I've had many times in my life where it felt like the world was going to end if I said something or shared something or did something or took care of myself, right? But the world's not going to end. Everything's going to be okay. And soon enough, everything will be so much better when we just show up and begin. I talk a lot about bridge thoughts, right? We don't lie to ourselves. We don't BS ourselves and say, okay, I suddenly believe that like I'm super worthy of love and good things. That's not how brains and bodies, that's just garbage. So we create a bridge to it. We slowly, gently begin to believe that maybe it's possible that perhaps there is a universe in which it might, in fact, be okay for me to consider maybe knowing what my needs are and honoring. And we create that huge bridge, that huge linguistic bridge between us and the thing so that our mind and body can come into ventral vagal, can relax and can say, okay, all she's proposing is a maybe. Maybes are unlikely to murder us. So I'll consider believing. And we just inch and inch and inch closer. To you having your rocks glass with a square ice. Also, I don't really drink alcohol. It's like immediate heartburn, but I want it up. And I want that glass to like be painfully cold. I want a gorgeous stem. Like it must be up. And you get yours and Leo gets hers. Right? Yeah. It's a luscious way to live, isn't it?
It really is. And I think what is so powerful for me about this is that it is woven into the messiness of daily life. You know, we have this idea of like, oh, I can have what I want and need, like somewhere out there in the land of blank calendars and days off from work and the children are grown up and, you know, whatever. Everything's free of obstacles. And, you know, for me, it's like this day is a shit show, but this coffee is exactly as I want and need it to be. And this moment or this meal or this bite or these 5 minutes while I'm listening to this podcast and brushing my teeth or, you know, whatever it is, creating those pockets right in the life that you have now. Which I think can feel impossible and is, I mean, has absolutely saved my life a million times. So necessary.
Yeah. So deeply necessary. I feel like we could talk forever and ever.
I love this conversation.
It's so,
Thank you.
I love how I feel like invigorated, expansive, but this set in this deep foundation of calm. Like my heart feels so grounded and centered. It's a really beautiful feeling. So thank you for that.
You are so welcome. That is like a dream.
It's pretty rad.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say on a scale of 1 to really great, I would say it's amazing.
There you go.
Yeah. That's the best Likert scale anyone's ever heard. So there you go. I think we should do it again. Will you come on the show again?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. I think everyone should go buy your book. So will you tell them all about it? Will you tell them where to find you, about Needy?
Yeah, so you can find me at maraglatzel.com.
How do you spell Glatzel?
Oh, Glatzel. And yeah, you can find all kinds of things that I offer. I have a fun quiz. What do you need right now? That'll give you some fun resources. And buy the book. The book is great. I am so biased, but it's a good book. And it's called, yes.
I'm not biased in that I'll say, I mean, I am because I adore you, but like, you know what I mean? It's not my book, but I blurbed it. I mean, I'm here for it. The book is legit super friggin' good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you were about to tell them where to find it.
Yeah, so it's called Needy, How to Advocate for Your Needs and Claim Your Sovereignty. Yes. You can find it wherever books are sold. I am very partial to the audiobook, which you can find on Audible. Ooh. And yeah.
And IndieBound is a great place.
IndieBound, absolutely. Bookshop.
So just as easy as going to the one named after a rainforest, but you are giving your money to your community, to local independent family-owned booksellers, because you buy through them and they buy right from the publisher. So the money stays in your community instead of going into a quadrillionaire's pocket.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Mara, you're just a dreamboat.
Thank
and
you.
I can't wait till our next conversation. Thank you for being you. Thank you for putting all your magic into the world. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening, my love. What a beautiful conversation. I hope it inspired you to take good care of yourself and to listen in and learn more about your own wants and your own needs. Thanks for listening. Let's do what we do. Gentle hand on your heart should you feel so moved. And remember, you are safe. You are held. You are loved. And when one of us heals, we help heal the world. Be well, my beauty. I'll talk to you soon. If you've been enjoying the show and learning a ton, it's time to apply it with my expert guidance so you can live life with intention without the anxiety, overwhelm, and resentment so you can get unstuck. You're not going to want to miss the opportunity to join my exclusive, intimate group coaching program. So head on over to victoriaalbina.com/masterclass to grab your seat now. See you there. It's going to be a good one.